I had to survive 100 days on these lava islands. There are 9 total islands scattered around this entire world, all of them filled with their own treasures and mobs. My goals are simple. The first thing I want to do is make a nice base. Then I want full netherite tools, and last but not least, I want to keep as many living things alive in this world as possible. Day 1, there was a chest on this island that I spawned in, and it had a sapling and tons of water bottles in it. So after checking out the entire island, I found one dirt block and placed my sapling down. While I waited, I gathered some blocks and built out to see if there were any islands around. I found this plains island right in front of me, and that's where I needed to go next. Then my tree grew and I got caught on fire. I was down to 1 heart. But at least now I could make wooden tools and put the tree on a safer part of the island. That night, I hid in a hole away from the mobs. Day 2, I found some rotten flesh on the ground, healed up a little bit, and went mining for some stone. I was able to upgrade into full stone tools. While I was here, I also found some iron, so I made a furnace and used these planks as fuel. This way, I also had some light down this cave. After all of that, I was able to make an iron pickaxe, and I finally found some coal. So now I had torches, and I immediately found even more iron. While everything was smelting, I chopped down this huge tree that just spawned, and I realized I have an infinite fuel source. So I made a bucket and collected some lava that I'm going to be using as my fuel from now on. Then I went mining for a few more minutes when I grabbed a bunch of ores and I had enough to make an iron chestplate, a shield, and iron leggings. Day 3, I turned all my cobblestone into slabs, and just as it was becoming morning, I bridged over to the Plains Island. This is where I met Jerry. So after a few seconds of talking, I'm more than willing to give up my life to keep Jerry safe. I might just be going crazy, but Jerry said some of his friends are trapped on one of these islands. But before all of that, I needed food and some shelter. So I went back to the sand islands and grabbed a chest, my crafting table, and my furnace. While I was there, I also chopped down all the trees for saplings, and I went underground to grab this water I found in the cave. I then started a farm, bred these cows, and killed one of them so I could finally eat some real food and not just rotten flesh. That night, the worst case scenario happened. A bunch of mobs spawned and I had only one goal: keep Jerry safe. I fought off hordes of zombies and skeletons and finally got Jerry in a hole to keep him safe for the night. Day 4, as the morning came, since all the skeletons burned, I used all their bones to get some wheat. I also turned this creeper hole into a future pool. I was gonna put water down later. After that, I flattened out a big area and put some fences down. I needed to keep these animals safe, and first up were the sheeps because I needed a ton of wool. I then made some shears, sheared my sheep, and went to sleep for the first time. Day 5 to 7, I tore down all the birch trees and replaced them with oak saplings instead. I then made another fenced area, but this one was for the cows. Right after that, I made a composter because I needed bone meal for a pro gamer trick. The trick is that if you have your water like this and place bone meal underwater, you can make an infinite source of water just from one bucket of water. So now I was able to make a nice little pond, but more importantly, I can start working on larger farms. And I did just that. I started working on 9x9 farms, and my visions for this is to be a big vertical farm tower thing. You know, this way slimes don't spawn and crush my crops, and I can save a ton of space. I also had to decorate the area, but as day 7 was ending, the farm was already 2 stories tall and looking kinda nice. Day 8, I decorated my island some more and I went mining. When I came back, I was able to make myself a new set of iron tools and breed my animals some more. Day 9 to 11, I started making the frameworks of my house. I've never made a circular house in Minecraft before, so it took me a bit to get the shape just right. I also had a bunch of sand from the previous island that I turned into glass. And before I knew it, most of the house was already done. The only things that were left were the roof and the interior. For the roof, I used up all of my stone and my andesite, and then for the interior, I just moved my chests and furnaces inside. I also filled the entire floor with carpets. Day 12 to 13, I expanded up 1 level on my farm because I got carrots and potatoes from the Mesa Island. I also flattened out the area behind my animals and I turned my cave into a safe space for Jerry. Oh yeah, speaking of Jerry, it turns out his friends were trapped on the Mesa Island, so I made some boats and went on a rescue mission to grab all of his friends. I managed to get these guys on a boat and I started the transport mission, and oh man, it was a nightmare. I also had a casualty. One of Jerry's friends unfortunately died during the transport, but at least I could bring back 1 friend for Jerry. Day 17, I gave these guys some bread and placed more beds in front of them. Then from my spawn island, I went went across to explore another one of these sand islands. Right in the middle there was a chest, and in that chest I got some acacia saplings and an Unbreaking 3 book. And then again the worst thing happened. It turned into night and this island was not lit up, so many mobs spawned. I thought I was gonna die for sure. I just ran for it, hoping I didn't get shot by a skeleton. Because of all those mobs, I got a crazy good idea. The lava makes it so that mobs can't spawn anywhere else, so as long as an area is kind of dark, a bunch of mobs will spawn. So I used all of my stone and wood to construct a mob grinder. I placed it right behind my house and surprisingly only took 1 day to complete since I had a ton of blocks already. Day 19, this thing was working like a dream. I already had like 35 bones, so say goodbye to hunger. I then turned all those bones into bone meal and force grew all of my crops. With all these new crops, I was able to breed a ton of sheep and cows. Then I was also able to fill out the 2nd level of my farm with carrots and my 3rd level with potatoes. I gave the leftovers to Jerry because he must have been starving. Day 20 to 21, turns out these guys weren't just friends because there's a baby here now. But that's none of my business. I, on the other hand, had to make a bunch of blocks because I saw a mushroom island and this island was pretty far away. Even though I brought a bunch of blocks, it still wasn't enough, so I had to go right back home. Then I got even more bad news because the wood I used for the mob spawner caught on fire. I guess this is what I get for being too fancy. I then had to go mining for some stone so I could finally get on the other island. I barely had enough blocks to make it onto this island, but it was completely worth it because the chest in the middle was crazy. This chest was filled with 36 diamonds. So I came home to make full diamond armor, a diamond pickaxe, and a diamond sword. I spent all of day 21 locking down Jerry's trades, and I made a 3rd floor of the farm just for cactuses. Day 22 to day 26, I built a bigger pen for the sheep and cows, used up all of my bone meal again, and I even moved Jerry up to my house since I had enough villagers down in the cave. After that, I built another portal and got the worst spawn possible. I tried looking around, but there was nothing but lava pools and this huge basalt delta biome, so I just came right back home. Then I added some more chests and moved my portal to another island, and I got a much better spawn this time. I was actually able to collect some gold and trade with these piglins. When I came back home, I was high up on another portal and I had to bucket my way down, and this made an ugly obsidian bridge. Oh, and I explored this goat island where I got a bunch of moss blocks. On day 27, I explored one of these other mesa islands and I got a silk touch book and some more cactuses. Then I finally came back home before I was gonna get jumped by a bunch of mobs. Day 28 to day 30, I flattened out an area towards the right of my house and I started working on a trading hall. Then it was time for the hard part, just trying to get the villagers in here. I used a very ancient technique of shoving them in there and putting a trapdoor in front of them. It actually managed to work really well. I got a Fletcher in there and then I got a farmer in there. Also, there's been a bunch of golems that have been spawning, so periodically I've been killing them and getting some iron. Then at the end of day 30, I moved the automatic composter right next to Jerry. Day 31, for the first time in this world, I actually had a lot of cows. So I slaughtered them and realized I have another island to explore. So I ran through the goat island, picked up some more moss blocks, and I built over to the island that I haven't explored yet. I actually ended up running out of blocks, so I had to make these ugly obsidian bridges. But once I made it, this place turned out to be an end island. There was a chest on top of a bunch of coal blocks, and it had 1 sugarcane and 24 pieces of paper. So I ran back straight home and planted the sugarcane and stored the paper. Day 32 to day 35, I used moss carpets to hide all the lightings in my base, and then I was able to make a lectern, so I trapped a librarian in the trading hall. I even skipped a sharpness 5 trade because I just needed bookshelves right now. While I was there, I also set up a leather worker, so hopefully I could get some saddles. I then expanded my pool, bone mealed the floor, and put glowstone down to make it look a lot nicer. After all of that, for the next few days, I just worked on getting my enchantment setup done. I harvested all my crops, chopped down all the trees for sticks just to get like 1 bookshelf at a time. Day 36, I collected some brown mushrooms because I thought I'd be able to zombify and cure my villagers, but boy was I wrong. Day 37 to 40, since I've got my sugarcane, I've been letting it grow, so now I finally had enough to dedicate an entire floor to it on the farm. I then let Jerry out because he was a king, and I built a bunk bed just in case he needed a place to sleep. After that, I made my way towards the nether island that was right in front of my crib, and then I found a chest there that had a soul speed book and some nether gold ore. Also, while I was there, I found another use for saddles. There was a bunch of striders here. I then came right back home and trapped another librarian, and this dude gave me a mending book, but I didn't have enough paper or emeralds to lock the trade in, so the trade just vanished. On the bright side, I got the final bookshelf to finish the enchantment setup, so I used most of my diamonds to make a new pickaxe, and I got Unbreaking 3, Efficiency 4, and Fortune 3 on it. Then on day 41, do you remember that goat island? I took my Fortune 3 pickaxe towards it because it had a lot of ores that were just exposed. So I basically just circled this island around as much as I could to grab every single thing I saw. Then on the way back, I brought 2 goats over to my island. This is the loot I got from Fortune 3. Day 42 to day 43, I trapped an armorer and a toolsmith, and then I began enchanting more of my tools. I got a power 4 bow and sharpness 4 on my sword. While I was there, I also started enchanting my armor, and I got protection 3 on my helmet, fire protection on my boots, and protection 4 on my leggings. After that, I filled out my house with more furnaces, smithing tables, and barrels. Day 44, I made 2 grindstones, one for me and the other to trap a villager. I also started re-enchanting my armor, and this time I got protection 4 on my chest plate and protection 3 on my boots. Day 45 to day 48, I looked around in all these different islands to put a nether portal, and I finally got a decent spawn from the Mesa Mountain. But after spending about 3 days straight in the nether, I believe that this world doesn't generate any structures, so no blaze rods for me. I then of course had to come right back home. Day 49 to 50, I cleared out 2 huge mounds of dirt on both sides of the island and even some in the back. This place was getting kinda cramped and I needed more space, but more importantly, I was able to make a path that connected to the mob spawner. And speaking of mob spawner, I actually cleared that area up really nicely. I got rid of all the obsidian and built walls around, so hopefully that place isn't flammable anymore. Day 51 to day 52, I started leveling up my leather worker, but I needed more emeralds, so I had to level up my armorer too, and now I can trade iron for emeralds. Then after selling a ton of my crops, I was able to buy saddles from this leather worker. But just when I got saddles and the ability to ride horses, all the horses on this island either despawned or died. I knew somewhere else that I can use a saddle for, so I went to the nether island and placed that saddle on a strider, and that's when I realized I also needed a fungus on a stick. Day 53 to day 57, since this world doesn't generate structures, my goal right now is to make a custom village. So to get started, I made a diamond shovel. I wanted to put silk touch on it, but when I enchanted it, I got really good enchantment, so I just used a separate shovel to put silk touch on that. Now I was able to get a grass block. I also realized I should probably get a mending villager right now, because I don't think my tools can handle this build. So I brought up another librarian, trapped this guy, and I started rolling a bunch of trades to get mending again. For some reason, it takes them forever to take up their job again, so I think it's more beneficial to my time if I just started building right now. First thing I started doing was filling out all the creeper holes, then I completely took all the sand out of this island and replaced it with dirt. Lucky for me, right underneath the big first layer of sand was a bunch of dirt, so I was just able to use that instead of running back and forth between my islands. Day 58 to day 59, I was 100% right. Most of my tools are super damaged, so now I really need mending. This time I actually got lucky, and after rolling for just a little bit, I got a mending book, and unlike last time, I could actually lock it in. I then also got a feather falling 4 book that I put onto my boots. Then I realized my mending book was really expensive, so I needed a bunch more emeralds, and to help me, it was time to make an iron farm. This was a pretty simple farm. I just needed like 5 villagers 8 blocks above the island, and once I got 2 of these guys in this chamber, that was basically all I needed to get started. The only thing remaining was now a collection system for all the iron that's gonna be dropped, but more importantly, I needed an area for the golem to spawn and get pushed into the lava. Day 60 to day 63, now that the iron farm was finished, I just waited for the villagers to grow up. While I was there, I also bought 1 mending book and put it on my Fortune 3 pickaxe. Then to kill more time, I harvested my farm, and once the villagers grew up, I just had to keep it being daytime. That's the only negative of the farm. This farm does not work at all at nighttime, but while I was there, I also slabbed up a bunch of areas that the golem couldn't spawn so that it would only spawn in the little chamber I built. Then on day 64, all those days of AFKing paid off since I got more than a stack of iron. And of course, I used all of that, plus some extra crops to trade as much as possible. And then I had enough emeralds to just get like 2 more mending books. I put a mending book on my diamond axe because it was really about to break, and I put it on my diamond sword. Then for the rest of this day, I just spent this entire time repairing the axe, and then I made another chest for all the rotten flesh. Day 65 to day 67, now that I have mending on all of my tools, I can gather a ton of stone and oak wood. With all those resources, it was time to finish the custom village once and for all. I found the center of this village and I started making a path to set up where the houses are gonna be. For now, I built 2 simple houses, 1 large villager house, and 2 farms. Plus I put stone walls all around the island so things wouldn't catch on fire. Day 68 to day 69, that little bridge that connected both of these islands, I made them too wide. This way the villagers don't burn. And just placing all these things, it took so long, especially just adding the walls alone. At least now the ride across was actually safe. So I lured 2 villagers right near the bridge and I trapped both of them on boats. It's been so long since I transported these villagers, I forgot how long it takes to just move the boat on land. As soon as I brought 1 villager over, I placed a bunch of beds all around the village and I went right back to grab the next dude. My only hope is that these guys are both farmers so they can actually repopulate quickly, and I also gave them like a stack of carrots and potatoes. Day 70 to day 80, it was now time for major upgrades. Since this whole time I've been clearing out a bunch of sand, plus that whole sand island, I had stacks on stacks of sand. I also had a bunch of gunpowder, so you guessed it, it was time to get some ancient debris. I made about a stack and a half of TNT, but I spent like a few days just trying to get a decent nether spawn, and travel in between these islands took basically forever. Every single one of these nether spawns were either a basalt delta or I was just inside some walls. So I went to the only safe place I knew, and that was the mushroom island. From here I was able to find a nether waste biome, and then I went down to y equals 15 and started letting it rain with a bunch of TNT. I ended up with 22 pieces of ancient debris. That's a pretty decent haul if you ask me. The only negative is that my armor was getting totaled. Then on day 81 to day 84, I spent these days collecting the biggest haul of carrots, potatoes, sticks, and sugarcane, all while my iron farm was running. I took every single piece of these stuff to the villages to crash their entire economy. I ended up with about 2 stacks of emeralds. Do you want to guess how much these 2 stacks of emerald got me? I got like only 3 mending books. Lucky for me, I had a spare one in my enchantment area, and I put mending on all of my armor pieces. Then while my ancient debris was smelting, I repaired all of my armor. Now it was time to actually do the upgrade. I made every piece of my armor netherite and also made my pickaxe netherite as well. Day 85 to day 86, to celebrate a huge achievement, I actually collected a bunch of stone and I used it to make a villager statue right above the trading hall. Now I might win the dumbest person in the world award because this thing took me so long. I think I have the same IQ as these villagers. After that, I made another statue on the other side of the island because I wanted to use all of my copper, and I saw this on TikTok. I also used this on my ocean world as well. Day 87 to day 89, I didn't need these villager breeders anymore, so I set them free. Plus I needed this cave. Once those dudes left, I expanded the room out some more and I began making a storage area. I know it's pretty stupid to make a storage area on like day 90, but I really needed it and I was running out of space in my house. Making this thing made me realize how much stuff I actually had. Organizing and moving the items took me forever, but after I put the furnaces and the automatic composter down, this place was looking really nice. Day 90 to day 91, there were a bunch of bees around and I collected some honeycombs using campfires and made custom beehives. Then I broke the rest of the nests around my island and bred the bees in front of these beehives. After that, to make sure the villagers don't lag my game, I put magma blocks right in front of them. Day 92 to day 93, I made a shepherd. This way I could trade all the wool I've been collecting from the sheep and the strings. I then went to the nether to look for warped fungus. I had no idea Crimson Forests had warped fungus in them, so I was really lucky and I collected a bunch of them. Then I came home, made a fungus on a stick, and went over to the nether island to grab myself a strider. One of these guys already had a saddle on it that I put on, and once I got on, it took me a little bit to get to the lava, but after that, I was basically zooming around. I parked this dude in front of my island, and then I went inside to enchant a bunch of books. After a bunch of cycles, I got a Sweeping Edge 3 book and a Looting 2 book, and I put that all on my diamond sword. Day 94 to day 96, I expanded my animal pen a little so I could have more grass blocks for the sheep. And then I realized why I have no bees on my island. Turned out this moss carpet was just blocking them from getting out. After that, I placed a few more beds in the custom village and gave them more food so that these guys would populate a lot more. Then I needed a bunch of emeralds and I found the perfect way to get a ton. I had a bunch of sand, so I smelted them all to make glass panes, and while I was there, I also bought a map from this guy. Since that worked like a charm, I went over to a sand island and got like 6 full stacks of sand and smelted all of it. All while that was happening, I was able to combine a bunch of bows I got from the mob grinder and got a really sick bow. Day 97 to day 98, I basically had an inventory full of glass panes and I slowly started selling all of it. Then to top off this custom village, I needed a bell, so I leveled up my weaponsmith and used up 33 emeralds to get this bell. Now the custom village is completely finished. I might not have been showing you all of it, but for the last 10 days, I was really super focused on getting a ton of emeralds. And that was because on day 99 to day 100, I used all the emeralds I've been collecting and made a 100 sign over the farm. I then took all of the gunpowder I've been saving up also to make a bunch of fireworks. I realized I'm very stupid, so I used some fire charges to actually make fireworks that work properly. Then I set up an automatic firework launcher and had a fireworks show with Jerry watching. speaking of Jerry, it was time to retire him, so I took him all the way over to the village so he can live the rest of his life with his own people. If you want to see another challenge of me taking on Minecraft's hardest mod pack, check this video out right here.